to 2025. It's a brand new year and it's January's edition of HR Hot Topics. I'm your host, Jodi Schafer. You may have noticed a new look, a new feel for our video series this year. It's all in celebration of our 30th anniversary. It's a really big deal for a small business to stay relevant and growing and prosperous for 30 years. And so we want to celebrate that in a big way. You'll see several things throughout the next 12 months that aim to do just that. I thought I would kick off this new year with a topic really celebrating our industry all around HR, but I know a question that is often asked of employers, especially as businesses start and then grow and scale over time, is how do we staff our HR function? Because there are a lot of different ways that you can do it. There's no one right way. I think the only consistent thing is that as you grow, the way in which you staff this really important people function will change. So you can count on that. So I thought today I would start by just kind of defining what I mean by HR function. Believe it or not, it's more than just payroll and time off requests and benefit administration. Although in the early days, that's really what a bulk of the time is spent processing. It feels very administrative early on. But when I'm talking about the HR function, I'm talking about everything from your hiring processes to your culture and your talent development, your record keeping and some of the compliance pieces that fit in with that. Compensation is a big one, building out compensation structures. We've done several videos on that. Benefit administration, obviously, and then the safety piece. And as again, compliance sort of weaves through all of that. So it's a lot, right? That's a very large umbrella for one individual to manage. But when an organization is small and you only have a handful of employees, especially if they're friends and family, you don't have a big need in any one of those areas, so it's manageable. And so generally, when a business is first starting out, they staff the HR function by adding it to the owner's plate. So the owner or kind of the key partners in an organization, they take on those responsibilities in addition to everything else they're doing to try to run this business. And again, because most of those first employees are friends or family, they have very few real issues. The risk of doing something wrong is relatively low, or at least if you do, the exposure of somebody telling on you and getting caught pretty low. So the owner or the key management team can sort of handle that. But as you grow and as you hire beyond friends and family, the need for that HR function becomes much, much larger. And so typically what we see is this sort of natural gravitation from owner key management to appointing maybe a point person on staff. Perhaps that person sits in finance. It could be, your controller. It could be a CFO. It could be a business manager who takes on a lot of the day-to-day, maybe helps with hiring, maybe is processing payroll, maybe is approving some time off requests. And that's maybe 80% of what comes through the door. And they've got the owner or the senior manager's backing for any bigger issues, employee relation type things. But typically what happens is you still need external expertise at that point. And so this is often when we get the call, when the business is about, 7 to 30 or 40 employees, which is kind of a big range, but that's sort of where you get beyond friends and family. And they can handle some of the day-to-day, but they're starting to suffer from lack of systems internally. It's becoming burdensome just because of the volume to manage some things. They're starting to have a little more exposure and nervousness around compliance and risk. And so they want to reach out to an external party. And that's certainly where HRM has been incredibly successful over the years, is coming alongside an internal partner and helping guide those individuals. So it's everything from creating systems, identifying bottlenecks or pain points or risk areas, building systems that help you manage things more effectively, and then being that backup when you have a question, when something's outside of your level of expertise, or it's a capacity issue. You know how to hire perhaps, but you just don't have the time to do it right now. So that kind of internal plus external is a really great system, and that works for many employers up through about 50 employees. You can typically kind of get away from that. And then it starts to feel like a bigger job than that. That one point person internally who maybe doesn't have the expertise in HR is starting to run into issues around FMLA perhaps, or requests for accommodations, or workplace investigations, things that just feel bigger than them perhaps, or bigger than their level of expertise. And that's when you start to question, like, should we maybe have somebody internal who does nothing but HR? Now, the statistics on this, kind of the benchmarking HR to staff ratio is often what we'll see in our industry. They vary pretty widely, actually, but there was a 2022 study done that said, about 1.7 internal HR folks for every 100 employees. So that means, like, when you get to about 50, 75 employees, most organizations start to think about hiring someone internal with true expertise in HR. And those individuals often, because it typically starts as a department of one, right, they occasionally need support. Again, maybe it's a capacity issue, maybe it's just something that's highly sensitive and they want a third party's eyes on it. So we continue to partner many times with organizations, even at that size, up through about 100 employees or so. You start getting to 100 employees, you don't need just one HR person, you need multiple HR folks. And this is often when organizations start to think, gosh, should we continue to hire and build internally? Should we look at a fully outsourced solution, often like a PEO, so a professional employer organization, which outsources 100% of HR? The difficulty there when you outsource 100% of your HR to an external party, no matter how competent they are, is that it's not you. And at the end of the day, HR is a people business. The compliance and the administrative tasks, those come with the territory. But if you want to attract and retain the best and brightest, you have to have a culture that enforces that. And when you outsource culture to a third party, whole stock like that, often the results are not what you hope for. And you don't actually get away from some of the issues that you're hoping to sidestep. You get pulled right back in because these employees still work for you. So the PEO option, just, kind of consider it carefully. Our recommendation is always that you still have really strong leadership internally that are managing the employee relations components. So what some organizations do when they reach that threshold and they want to outsource some functions is they outsource the more administrative functions. So perhaps you're going to outsource your payroll. Maybe you're going to outsource benefit administration. Maybe you're going to outsource recruiting, perhaps, like the front end of recruiting. Some of those more burdensome in terms of time, or maybe kind of rinse and repeat type tasks. You might outsource those and have a lot of success with that, and then keep that internal, whether you call them HR or it's just a strong management team, to handle the employee relations component, to talk about policies that would work within your organization, because those are not necessarily transferable from one organization to the next. It really needs to work for you and your culture. So again, kind of that split between what do we want to keep internal, what do we want to keep maybe external. And then as you continue to grow beyond that, that's where you really see full-scale in-house HR departments. And then HR professionals start to specialize. You have the recruiters and talent acquisition. You have payroll and benefits. You have comp plans, right? So the very large organizations often will have all of that in-house. So just some considerations for you if you're thinking about wanting to partner with somebody to either offload some of the administrative tasks, or just come alongside and kind of be the partner to set up structures for you and to be that backup and that resource for your internal point person. Obviously, we're going to be thinking about cost, but it's more than that. I think you also want to be thinking about, for your partner, is there alignment? Does this individual or does this company, are they flexible enough to step into your shoes and treat your people and give advice within the same vein of your mission, vision, values? Right? Or are they kind of robotic and it's one size fits all? Because that's not going to work for you. You want somebody who really takes the time to understand your needs and then customize solutions to meet the needs. Another thing, and I'll just to our horn again here on this one, longevity. You know, there are consultants out there day in and day out. Sometimes when I look at resumes, I'll see folks that do consulting as kind of a stopgap measure between two in-house positions, right? It's kind of a way to fill their time while they're looking for the next opportunity. And I'm not knocking those folks at all, but there's a difference between that kind of consultant and somebody who does this as their profession year over year over year. And so you want to look for a certain level of longevity, I think, with any partner that you go through, so that there's a guarantee, to the extent there could be, they'll be here next year and the year after that, right? And that institutional knowledge that you're sharing with them on the front end carries through and is passed on from consultant to consultant within that same organization. So 30 years, right? I mean, we must be doing something right. And then the final thing I'll leave you with, obviously, is expertise. HR is multifaceted, as I said in the very beginning. And so whoever you're partnering with, make sure that they have expertise in the specific areas that you need. It's great to be a generalist, and a generalist can help with a lot of things. But when you need a compensation plan built, probably want an expert on that. When you need advice around benefits, specifically compliance, probably want an expert around that, right? The best practices around talent acquisition and culture, those continue to evolve. You want somebody who's following that. So the expertise is the final piece there. So with all of that, right, hopefully it gives you a little bit of new light in terms of how you think about your HR function. Obviously, HRM Services is here to help. We've done so for 3 decades now. We're excited to continue to do so for you, for your friends, for anyone that you'd like to pass our name along to. And we're really looking forward to what 2025 brings. So if you have any questions, you know, you can reach me, Jodi Schafer, at workwithhrm.com.